Wow, are we live? I think we are live. This is absolutely incredible because we haven't been live in a long time, and we are finally live, which is incredible. Let's just get started talking about what we need to talk about. 6 incredible sites, all from Awwwards.com, all talking about incredible UI UX design principles, and this is going to be a wild ride, you guys, because today we're going to talk about 6 unbelievable sites, how all of them just come together, how they work really really well together, and this is going to be an incredible live stream because we're going to talk about all of these different UI UX design principles that we have ignored for so long, and we shouldn't ignore them really because they will just change the way you look at things and change the game entirely. Let's get started. The first site that I want to talk about obviously today is this one, techspeed.com. I sincerely had hoped that this stream would give me lesser issues, but it isn't, so we'll just work with what we've got. This is techspeed.com, and this is the first site that we're going to talk about today. All-in-one outsourcing, and I want to just get started talking about the wonderful color palette that they have, because the first thing I look for in these sites every single time is the color palette. The purple is really really sharp, and then you have a ton of really really cool shades to balance it out on a contrast basis. This is absolutely incredible because you have colors that will work together no matter what the contrast is, and you have a lot of ability now to not only stay within this range of color palettes but also to experiment a lot and still have the contrast and still make it work. So I think that's absolutely incredible. To get started, we also have a bunch of really really nice fonts, and yes, they're not the most regular, weird, Playfair display serif types that you would hope for, but does it work? It absolutely does, and I love the fact that there is some constant balance after everything was said and done, and there is a lot of white space, and did I mention these are 3D renders, or they're just SVG animations, which I think is more likely now, and they animate as soon as you hover over them, which is a fun interaction because you just don't want to throw things at your screen and you don't want to just forget about them. You want the user to care and you want there to be some action happening in real time. So I think that's also very very pretty, to say the least. And with that said, again, subtle motion wherever you get the choice, which is a great principle to have as a whole, because you also have these weird lines doing all of the motion that they need to do, and just everything working exactly as it's supposed to. I think it's absolutely incredible that they'll take something very very normal looking and integrate a ton of motion to it and have so much work be happening in real time, so that you don't really get to look away from all of the motion and from everything that happened, and all of the text. It just works wonderfully. I think the thing that did throw me off here, the little bit of the concern that I did have, was related to the hierarchy of this text. Something's too big, and then when the text tries to get smaller and go down, it doesn't really happen, which throws me off, honestly. But with that said, is it pretty? Absolutely. Is it doing something new? It is, because you now take this logo, this freaky that they have got going, and then you take all of these weird shapes and put a video in the background, which is absolutely something unseen, because A, there is a bunch of shapes going on, B, there is video playing in the background of said shapes, and I have to say at this point, yes, there is something new going on, and yes, there is something different going on, which will absolutely affect the way I look at this site, because until now we've talked about a couple of concepts. Yes, there is the strategic, the old school, the basic site that we always wanted happening in real time, but you also have a ton of motion and a ton of animation and a ton of fancy parallaxy stuff that happens with hovers and that happens with animations. I think this site didn't really take anything away like the modern art sites do. The site integrated the things that were new and integrated the things that were kind of visionary into an already ongoing site, and I think that's the beauty of it, because it didn't go out making something new. It just integrated something new into something that's just very old school and very very simple. And as I said even before looking at the site as a whole, it was a prediction, and you know it. These colors are absolutely incredible, especially because you can put any of these colors without bringing in a white on any of these purple standard dark backgrounds, and all of them would work without a problem, because many of the times when you're trying to get a bunch of colors like purple, green, orange, which are all secondary by the way, so technical strategic color combo going on over there, when you try to get all of these colors, when you try to get them to work together on a contrast field like this, it's just basically zero or close to zero chance of accessibility actually happening in real time, which is great because now you don't have colorblind audiences having no idea what's going on the screen, which is incredible. So I think from the contrast WCAG perspective, it's also pretty nice, which is incredible. You also have a ton of testimonials, which is really a cool thing to have, and all of the colors work really well. I think the green is slightly algae-like and off-putting, even if I don't want to frame it that way, because we never saw it coming, and it's from the beginning I've been thinking about this, and I've from the beginning censored myself in saying the fact that this green kind of looks really ugly, and it's funny if you think about it, because why would you want something this weird going over here? And I think this is what breaks the sophistication a little bit. Like, you could have chosen a prettier, lighter shade of green, but overall can't complain. Everything real comes with its problems, and everything real does have those elements where it makes you go ick, and it does do a pretty good job at everything that it does, and every single element that they started with, especially with the first card, is consistent in the second card, and every single element that they maintained at the top is maintained at the bottom, and they will work with their copywriting just to make it work, and that is absolutely incredible, because on the one hand, you want innovation, which, yes, this card is a little bit different than your standard average card, but also you want consistency. So consistency also happens when you get to repeat it on two different questions. So I think that is a lot of consistency, and that is a lot of this working out really well. Core values, of course, they work really well together. There is a lot of animation where it needs to be. Hover animations have their own effects going, and you have every single piece of information you would need to build trust, which is also pretty nice. And also at this point, yes, there is motion, yes, there is text, yes, there is elements that need to work exactly where they need to work, yes, there is everything that needed to be staying exactly where it needs to be, which is why you can kind of look past the lack of considerable prettiness, which yes, it is a slight issue. And again you get back to the testimonials, which is very satisfying, because of course you want the site this good to work out. Of course you want to not hate the things that are present, even when there is an ugly shade of green going currently. So I think there is green, which definitely lets you hate the site a little bit, but at the end of the day, with the way they've structured things, I think I can look past that. I actually can. And then you have all of these texts and all of these different elements just going exactly where they need to go. And then you have, again, animations absolutely everywhere they can be. And text hierarchy is something I'm struggling with even now. If you wanted a different hierarchy without getting into the spectrum of changing font sizes, which was actually quite important here, but they missed it somehow. Like, this should have been bigger, obviously. You could have changed the color to white, because white was present at the bottom already. Like, this could have been white easily, and you would be able to tell both of these apart without having any major problems here. But I think that's just one of them little things they missed once again. Like, this should have been either white or not such an ugly shade of green. But again, I am looking past all the ugliness today, because there has been a ton of ugliness, God knows. This footer is definitely fun, because post 2024, I think by the end of 2024, we saw a very vivid rise in the name of the brand coming into the footer and just being welcome and being present across the board. But this time they not only have that going, which is great, now they also have an animation, which is adding another layer of sophistication into the animations and the advancement that was already present, which is absolutely nice. And then you have a bunch of links exactly where they need to be. Again, is it crammed up here? Yes. Do I like it? Absolutely. And is it a good site? At the end of the day, it is. I want to give this a 6 out of 10, because even when you try to ignore it, this green looks like algae, and I can't stop thinking about it from start to finish. I think color which is like very basic. Like, this could have been all white, and at least the icons could have been white. Like, that would have been a little bit better. Like, it could have been a little bit better in terms of the colors and the font sizes, but I think other than that, it does do its own job really well. I do think they tried to integrate a ton of animations and a ton of new age things into an already good site, and I think that kind of buffed up the score. But I'm not going to say this is perfect, and that's just the way it is. So 6 out of 10. TechSpeed.com. Let's go to the next one. The next site that we're talking about is also, funny enough, the topic of today's thumbnail, which, yes, you saw before coming to this video. Zwirad Strenger. I have no idea what this language is. It has to be something that isn't English. Deutsch? Wow, German, probably. I have no idea. I'm just making a guess. But what is this site? How does it look like? I think it looks really, really nice, and I think it looks pretty, and I think the fact that they've just taken up this space wherever they needed to, given us white space where they needed it, and cut things off exactly where they needed it is also great. I think they have a ton of potential, especially now that they've actually integrated bold big text on your face and then a lot of white space exactly where you need it to. You do see the products, and you do see these images, and you do see things taking the space where they need to, which is the first line that comes to my mind when I look at a site like this. Because when you say something takes up the space it needs to, it gives you white space where you need white space, especially after bold text. It gives text the space to exist when you need there to be space. It gives images the ability to, take up their own space, animate when they are the center of everything that's going on. It gives us the ability to take things wherever they need to take, and it gives us the ability to work really, really exactly where you need to work. So I think that's really, really great, and that is their consistency. They will take their text and they will take everything that they have and they will make it work together, which is what is nice with this entire site. And yes, the text is big, but it is relevant where it needs to be relevant. We also have a bunch of cards which are not what you'd expect them to be, because yes, the images go a little too big, but also making things big and brutalism is a rising trend, so who am I to question what's going on over here? You have a graph that's going on in the background, you have this text, you have these animations, and you have a fiber physics effect going on with the WebGL, of course. And with everything said, it does go to the whole brutalism kind of modern approach by the end of it, because yes, there was white space, and yes, there was space where you needed space to be, but also this is where you truly have no idea why things would arrange the way they do, with a bunch of space in random places. But with that said, unleash the full potential of your bike with us, which is nice. And yes, the spacing between the words is a lot, but this site takes every single aspect, makes it large, makes it big, does things that are absolutely jarring. For example, this space, I have no explanation for it whatsoever. How did this happen? Why did this happen? Why are we even watching this in real time? But at the end of everything, after everything is said and done, I think it does work well together as far as working together goes. And yes, they did introduce this weird looking card or this weird looking section as soon as we got started, but also they kind of reversed it. Like, they kind of reversed the background color when things got boring, and then stayed consistent with the entire layout, which is also nice. And you get again you get something very, very unconventional with a bunch of really, really weird images that just happen when you kind of hover over them. So again with that said, we reach the end of the footer, and this text just gets way too small. So I think this site was the site of mood swings, because yes, we started with a huge font, and then we had huge images, and then we had huge spaces, and then everything was just huge. But by the end, and you do see that thread coming, you had no idea why this was the way it was, and yes, we ran out of explanations, and yes, we had no idea why I'd look into this corner, and yes, it is very, very difficult to look at text that went this small after text that just went this huge. So I think at the end of the day, it just went very, very random, and it just kind of hit all of the corners at once, and they do try to tie the whole thing together with the whole bento grid at the bottom, and making things work really, really well, but overall, 7 out of 10, a lot of attempts in animation, not the best site in the world, because by the end you lose track of any and every expected consistency, and things are just wherever they want to be, which is very unexpected. But overall, is this a good site? Perhaps, because it tried things that no one else did. So that's me talking about stengerbike.de. The next site that we're talking about is a really, really huge number, which I'm hoping is this person's phone number, because if it isn't, then this person is a psychopath, and I'm a psychopath for talking about it. 13322566869. Yes, it is funny, because it's very weird, and it does not tell you the person's name. It just wants to tell you what this is, and then it just goes ahead and does it. Wow, did I already scroll to the bottom? Did this site start from the bottom? I have no idea at this point. Did anyone really see that? As soon as you reload the site, you start over here, and then when you try to scroll upwards, which is not something that happens, you kind of go downwards, which is like this scroll bar is supposed to be a closed loop, which I did not see coming. So as soon as we start, things start to get freaky, which is fun. And then you get this text which isn't really a logo, but it's the name of the site and perhaps the person's phone number. If I call this number and this isn't even a phone number, I will be seriously mad, because this was not supposed to happen. And you have all of this text going, which is just basically reversing whatever's going on in the background. No, this isn't black. No, this isn't green in color. It's the classic invert filter, which we've seen in Figma, which we've seen with CSS, which we've seen every place we've seen it take place over and over again. Red changes to green because it's in the background, black changes to white because it's in the background, and yes, you get a really, really unconventional hero going as soon as you get started. So I think the whole structure behind this hero, even if it seems random, is actually very controlled. You take the word that you needed to take, mask one of the A's for face with the actual face of the person, and then when there is space left, when white space seems inappropriate, you try to put whatever piece of description text is left inside of the description text. You try to make it work. I think this is kind of taking inspiration from the layouts of Vogue magazine and stuff, and I think it tries to be consistent with the whole new age magazine layout approach that's just coming up. But with that said, is it new? Absolutely. Is it fun? Yes, if you're not bothered by the fact that this is a phone number and it's really hard to remember and it feels like some psychopath came up with the concept, because I'm still not comfortable with the way things worked out there. Wow, there is a lot of white space. Like, as soon as you think you've seen their worst, even worse keeps on coming. Like, there is a lot of white space now, and there is a lot of text which just takes up all of the space that it needs to now. And then you get to a point where you have no idea why you would capitalize this much, especially when it becomes difficult to read. It's practically screaming at you. When you start a new project, it's essential to choose the right road to move forward. Thankfully, I've been there before and I know when to turn on a highway. This is I started hoping there would be some understanding of what's going on, but I have no understanding what's going on whatsoever, and I'm now afraid I'm missing the entire point. This is absolutely insane. I'm pretty sure they've taken a bunch of GIFs from jiffy.com and just put them here. Next, let's take a look at companies free of these challenges. Alright, so there must have been some challenges that came to some of their clients and now they got rid of them. And I think we've seen the AxLab site, and I think we've seen these, but I think the weirder fact, the fact that makes me really uncomfortable today is the fact that you have all of these consistent cards going that kind of collapse when they need to, but also it's a very weird principle. Like, there is glass morphism going exactly where I'm located. Hold on, let me just switch around. Wow, everything seems to be glitching today. Let me just switch around where I am, and you do see a card with a ton of glass morphism going, and you do see a card where there's a title, and then the whole layout stays consistent. But with that said, nothing over here makes sense. Like, nothing makes sense at all, because everything is just really, really random, and everything just takes up the space that it needs to take. Everything is just trying to fit in, and it doesn't, and you still have no idea why the font sizes and every single element worked out the way they did. So I think it does get confusing if you start thinking about it like that. You have a ton of text, and yes, there is a lot of white space once again, and you have all of these nice looking cards that take up the space exactly where they need to be. So that's nice. And then we just talked about in the second last text speed site that we saw logos having videos as masks, and they are able to do that now. They are able to put circles now for some reason. Again, I have no idea. What is this, Morse code? What is this? Why would you put phone numbers over here? Why would you have videos playing in the background? And a lot of things are just unexplainable. But finally we come to an end to the dreadful site that this is. Alright, need someone who can handle it. You've just found me. And then it tries to settle in with all of their processes and all of these circular layouts. This is definitely very innovative, something I would steal, maybe. But at the end of the day, it's a confusing site, even as a portfolio. Like, it tries to end with the whole phone number as the footer, and then it tries to bring you back to the top, so it kind of becomes endless, which I had no idea that could even happen. So I need to go and learn how that even happens. With that said, if you guys want to see how it happens, maybe type endless scroll in the live chat or comments, and we'll maybe talk about building it someday. I do think it's very, very confusing. Like, I have to give this a 4 out of 10 because yes, there was innovation, yes, there was new stuff happening, yes, we saw things that we didn't think we could see, but also I have no idea why half of the stuff is happening. You still don't know who this is, which is personal as a question, especially if someone is committing to things with you. You just see a phone number and you see the words face to face, but you still don't see their face, and you see a ton of GIFs. I think it's very weird, and it's kind of unreliable because you just don't know what's happening. So 4 out of 10. The next site that we're talking about, ClarisseMyCard.com, creative web designer, co-founder of Oki Studio. Again, very weird, very fabric-like, very physics affected, and this entire thing is just a ton of white space and a ton of looking really, really weird. And it looks fun, especially because it gets the icons for every single element that there is, and it gets them to animate, and it gets them to work really, really well, and it gets all of the things that you would want in a standard portfolio to animate very unnaturally. But I do like the fact that they've kept their descriptions consistent. Even when you have a GIF, I think this is the point. It's nice to make a description between GIFs, because I call them that because I don't know if it's GIF or GIF anymore. It's nice to think about why a certain GIF would work and a certain would not. Now you have a GIF which is actually relevant to where things were. In the last site, there were just GIFs thrown around wherever they wanted them to. I do remember a part where things were just very, very random. I think I saw something somewhere. If I haven't, then I am definitely confused. Wow, look at this. You have no idea what's happening here. Like, probably these are related to these titles, but some of these just get lost. So I think the fact that even if this isn't this person's real image, it still works really, really well together, because you have a GIF and you have it just staying exactly where it needs to stay. And even though there is a lot of font size differences and font weights not being perfect, and this font is probably like the most basic I think I've ever seen. Like, it's very, very basic, and yet it still works because they've tried to be very, very descriptive with the way things are, and they've tried to be very, very descriptive with their icons and their animations and everything that stays every single place, and they've tried to be very, very consistent with their different links, even though there is a lot of stuff to cover, and everything does center as soon as you want them to. There is a lot of music, which I unfortunately have to mute, because no, you can't have a lot of music on these live streams. YouTube would eat me alive. You have a video that's playing in the background, which is quite nice to see. And I think this takes from the original Apple concept that came in when Apple launched the site as it is seen today. You had these videos of these real screens playing in real time, and you were able to see them right in front of your eyes. Which reminds me of the fact, even though I'm going into backstory mode now, I was at Delhi airport recently and I saw a Safari browser ad, and the most intriguing part of the entire story is how they managed to keep every single font and every single space and every single UI design principle consistent every single place you would expect it to be. Like, this is a hoarding for God. This is like a board ad. I don't know what they call it. How am I this stupid? The roadside boards. And they were able to make it super consistent even there, to the point where you were able to recognize the fact that this came from this brand immediately, even when the Apple symbol wasn't visible. Like, it was an ad for Safari browser, and its spacing was incredible, because you could tell this is the spacing, this is the font, this is the layout of Apple. And I think this is why stuff is so intriguing with Apple, because they invented a color, a basic design system, and they stuck to it to every single intriguing detail. They stuck to it even when it came to roadside billboards, and they stuck to it on their site to a dot, which now leads us to a point where anyone at all could copy things from their site and take inspiration, and you can immediately detect that they are the ones who did it first. Like, it's that consistent and it's that strong as far as branding is concerned. So with that said, this is a great site, and it does have a bunch of animations and a bunch of really, really cool elements coming up, coming down, taking up exactly the space they need to take. Again, you zoom into the video, which is quite incredible. Like, you started with this video and then had all of these elements come and go, and then the video came back exactly where it needed to be, and then you have a lot of white space, which I'm hoping there's an image here, but it isn't. So I'm just going to take this, like, a huge white space with some text just present, which is kind of weird, but overall it's a very simple site which has a ton of intriguing animations and things that you wouldn't usually see. 8 out of 10, not the perfect site, especially because by the end, the footer in the last section really threw me off. I was expecting for a better footer. Like, there is no difference in any of these whatsoever. The most basic footer and ending of all times, and this animation is something that you have seen in Apple if you've ever seen the site very, very clearly. With that said, it took something very, very regular and tried to make it very, very interesting, which it did happen even when you didn't go for the fanciest font or the fanciest choices in terms of colors. So I think 8 out of 10, because even with the simplest concepts, they added such a great piece of balance that it just looks really, really good. The next site that we're talking about, Decathlon Walker 76.index.studio. I have no idea if this ever even loaded. I've been trying to load this for so long. For the sake of us all, I really, really hope it does load. Wow, this whole site might be a scam, because I've been loading this since before we started the live stream, and you can just see this take up the space that it needs to and still not load. This might be the biggest site fail we've had yet ever on this site. -1 out of 10, because I still have no idea what's going on. If it loads, although after the last site we'll get back to it, but if it doesn't happen, major fail. Thepatchsystem.com is the final site that we have for today. The easiest way to get more patience, patch up your marketing, grow your business. Again, color scheme, very unnatural. This is the blue we all ran away from when we started, because when everyone started and you tried to bring blue, if you've ever programmed before, if you've done HTML, CSS, you were told the first color you needed to add was the standard HTML blue, red, green, and this is the blue everyone ran away from, because it feels ultraviolet, even if it isn't. Like, it feels like something really bad is happening, but it isn't. And then you choose to take a blue like that, and you choose to make it work with an orange that's just as powerful. I think it's quite unbelievable that I would want to stick around with a site with this blue for this long. So I think that's great. And then you have white space, and you have your fonts, and you have your animations. It just took the most off-putting principles and the best principles and smashed them together, and you would never see the fact that this works really well coming, and it still works together, which is absolutely incredible, and which is the whole idea of innovation at all with this site. So I think that's absolutely beautiful as far as I'm concerned. You have a bento grid as soon as you start, and things do take up the space that they need to. And yes, when you hover over any of these elements, they switch around with their animations and they take up exactly the space that they need to. And yes, there is a grid in the background, and yes, all of these elements work really well together. I think they took a couple of major elements: the weird clashy blue color scheme, the bento grid, which I'm surprised was this consistent for this long, images that change with their animation, which is great job on the illustration front, by the way. And then you had, wow, is my mic working? Yes, it is. And then you have all of these elements that just, even put in a grid, even put as a static thing, look really, really good, and even just taken on their surface, look really well. Did you notice the fact that they changed the font selection to orange, which is the polar opposite of blue? And I think this isn't a pure orange, or if it is, it's very, very well balanced to the point where it literally looks good with the blue, because the blue was just too much, because it's just pure ultraviolet-ish blue that comes on any LED screen, any screen of any electronics at all. And I think the orange just works really well to balance it out. And orange and well are their joint scheme of kind of dealing with the weird blue. I am surprised at how they didn't even try to choose black here. Like, it should have been some black, right? Like, it could have been. Like, this can't possibly be true. And also, I just realized, as soon as you kind of hover over these, you are able to select invisible text with the same exact blue that is in the background. Hold on, let me just switch around my camera. This is so weird. I've got to find a more efficient way of doing this. As soon as you select the text, you are able to see some blue text that was on some blue backgrounds, which is why it disappeared, and which is why it looks really, really weird now. And it's so insane, and it's so weird, and it's so unbelievable, because yes, it's the text that hasn't reached this grid yet, because the grid remains consistent, and you're trying to animate all of these elements inside, and you're able to see how that happens in real time. And I love the fact that they animated everything while this was still happening. I would have wanted to see some black here, of course, because yes, blue gets overpowering really, really quickly if you let it get overpowering, but at the end of the day, not the worst way of animating things. I would have preferred if the font just went transparent, but it didn't, which is not the worst thing in the world, but it definitely shows rough edges when you do not want to see rough edges happen. Get back to what you love, which is incredible. And I think these hearts are animating from your cursor, which is a really nice way of getting things back on track, getting things engaged. Like, the two ways that I've seen be very, very consistent when you're working on a site which gets boring really quickly, there are only ever two ways with which things will get interesting again. Number one, you change the background color, you change the colors in the next section very, very quickly, just so people get to focus on what's going on your screen. Number two, you get your cursor to do something fancy, because the cursor is something that's always going to stay with the user, and when it's doing something fancy, even if it's something stupid, I think it really does get the user's focus back to where you were focusing things on, no matter where you started from. So I think that's just a really important principle to keep in mind, especially if you're just doing things over and over again. 100% done for you, and you get a bunch of details on where things are going to look like, how they're going to look like. Yes, I would have wanted to see a little bit of a difference in terms of font size and colors and the way things worked, and just have these marquee tags not be so random. Marquee, if you don't know, is the constant tag which lets you put text inside, and it kind of keeps on going until it reaches the end of the screen, and then it kind of loops again. It's like one of those warning information boxes available on railway stations and airports and wherever else you'd want to kind of see it. So I think marquee tags with the same exact text is very weird, and it's unbelievable. Why would you keep things going in this direction, in this way? It's absolutely weird the way this site just takes all of the realistic elements, just big font sizes, big texts, everything big and weird, and it just makes it all work. I find it quite unbelievable. Why do I like this site so much? It's weird. I would have wanted to see more black. Like, the illustrations is the only place you find a grounding presence of black, which is why not more black in the text? Because you get to a point where this blue can become so boring, you don't want to read this anymore. Like, that's just the way things are now, and the only time you do read anything at all is when the font is so big. It's the only thing you can focus on. So with that said, the bento grid remains, the background gray grid remains, the marquee tags keep on being exactly what they are, and it does get boring really, really quickly, especially from this point on. I hate the fact that you can't even tell how long the site is, because they've found a miraculous way to erase the whole scroll bar, which shouldn't really happen. Not good for any accessibility at all, and by this point I am absolutely exhausted by the blue, which I suspected would happen, especially when you don't even use black anymore. Like, this is like someone forgot to bring the black pen on a test, and now everything looks super blue and super weird. And when will this site actually end? And now it finally ends, and you had no way of telling it would end. Like, there is no anticipation anymore. Things can just go be wherever they want to be, and yes, there are a couple of frequently asked questions, and yes, things take up the space that they need to. Bento grids remain consistent until the end, until the footer. How do I rate the site? 6 out of 10, because yes, there was a ton of stuff that could have gone right here, especially with the missing black. Like, fonts could have been blacker, and things could have been much more consistent in terms of font sizes. Things really started to get random at some point. You have no idea what's small and what's big anymore, and things just went wherever they wanted to. So that's the part that's bugging me, honestly. But also you get to see this very, very pure blue that we never expected we would see on any big sites ever, which is what the 6 points come from. Not the fanciest site I've ever seen, not the stupidest site I've ever seen either. 6 out of 10, thepathsystem.com. And the last site, the gag site, has finally loaded. Wow, I did not see this coming. Who would have thought having an entire site be like this, and then having it work like this would look the way it does? Like, who in God's fancy lands would have thought that this site finally decided to work? We prayed for a miracle, and it happened somehow. Thank you to everyone who was praying for this miracle. We finally get to update its scores back from -1 to anything at all that's different now. Yes, this is all very, very fancy in terms of not putting text out there, and yes, there is a lot of white space and images, but again, you have no idea what is happening even after the site loaded. Like, I was hoping we would get some clarity after the site loaded of the way things were, and no, it didn't happen. now there's a video in the background and text that I don't understand, especially because I should have chosen English and yet I chose French. But I don't think there'll be much clarity even if I choose English, because just everything is just playing out exactly however it wants to. I don't even think this is all text as a whole. I think they've put down each alphabet exactly as they wanted to. Like, this isn't even one single block of text. I think all of these are separate. L is a separate text box, A is a separate text box, W is a separate text box, which they have done because animations like these can't really be done on one single box of text or anything as a whole, so they kind of had to break it apart. But what that also means is now you don't have text which is using an entire word. Now you have different alphabets that are making up a word, which basically fails your Google Translate system because it looks for words and translates words. It can't get closely put text alphabets together and make a translated word out of it. It doesn't know how to do that. So I think accessibility wise, major blow to the head, especially if you were starting with French, which isn't everyone's preferred language as English is on the internet. So video keeps playing in the background, random text keeps on coming up. Yes, there is a logo, yes, there is a call to action button, but for some reason, even after choosing English on Translate, either they've found a way to make things even weirder, because yes, all of these are different alphabets. If they weren't different alphabets, I don't think they would overflow this easy, because when you start hovering over them, not only does the text become bigger, the T, E and R at the end just throw you off. And yes, wow, this is an absolutely incredible bento grid. I expected things to be fancy, but this is even fancier, and this is much bolder than anything we thought. Like, this is a really weird bento grid that kind of slowed down, and it is made of individual lines, and you can see that. I would have wanted to see this on the hero section. I would have wanted to see it much further in front, and not the weird confusing video that was just throwing everyone off. Like, this would have been a better starting point for the entire site. Like, they could have put the video in a stupid video box, no one would have cared. Did anyone else notice the fact that they take the color of the shoe that's in front of them, and then that is the color that's present in the background? And it does get a little bit bolder when you try to hover over it. Like, that's a really cool attention to detail, and all of these have the same exact size, which is also nice. And also the fact that when you hover over these, the same exact problem that happened at the top now happens at the bottom. But since this text is white, the HASN kind of goes down to the next line. No one really understands what's happening anymore. And I do suspect most of these texts have not been put in one single box, because I think purple and beige and khaki are different English words and not French words. I am pretty sure there is supposed to be some name for these words wherever it is, and yet that doesn't happen. So with that said, this text box actually translates, and I think if you change it back to French, yes, the colors do change their names, and you are able to translate these. But because every single one of these was put as a different element, not HASIOUTER the whole word, just H as a single element, O as a single element, I think nothing translates at all, and then it becomes a really freaky site with no idea what's going on. These you can see actually translate, and that's nice to see. But other than that, unconventional layout, unconventional images, very unconventional life going on as a whole. Is it fancy? Absolutely. Is it unbelievable? Yes, it is. Would I have wanted to see this, whatever's happening now, at the hero section? Yes, that would have been a little bit more phenomenal if you're checking the phenomenalness of sites. I think this could be a solid 8 out of 10, because every single fancy element you needed for a fancy site was here. I think the first impression is what spoiled the site for me. You don't want a video that's this long, this confusing, honestly, playing according to the user scroll and not on its own. It's just weird, and it's just ununderstandable. Like, it's really difficult to understand, and you have all of these text elements that are just taking up the space that they are, and it's not working well. Like, it can't even translate text. 8 out of 10. Fancy things done? Absolutely. Did it work well in the end? Somewhat. And yet that's all I can say. Like, it's everything I could say if I tried. Ladies and gentlemen, these have been the 6 sites we talked about today. I hope you find them fun. I hope you found something interesting happening out of this entire story. I hope they help you. I hope you watch the complete entire live stream, although we're going to start taking all of these elements now, and we're going to try to make smaller videos out of them as well. I will see you soon tomorrow, same time, 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time or 3:30 p.m. GMT. Thank you so much for joining me live. I will be here tomorrow. We'll talk about 6 fancy sites that no one saw coming. and incredible ideas that we did not think were possible